Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Women with Grit, where we interview dynamic women around the world who are truly, truly making a difference in their communities as well as their industries. And tonight you are in for a treat. Hey, Lee, how are you? Happy Tuesday.
Tuesday. Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. Things
Good.
are running and rolling and rocking.
Good. You recovered from all the birthday stuff last month and
It's my
turning
birthday.
21 and acting like it.
I know. Listen, am determined. So I've never spent my birthday quite the way that I did this year.
Mhm.
And normally, I don't know if you remember, but the last couple of years I launched books, I launched some type of new program, and all those things I thought were great. But this year was really special because I spent it with my family. And this was the first time in over 20 years that I've actually been in Florida to
Oh
spend
wow.
my birthday with my family. It's sad, right? But
It happens. Yeah, I
yeah,
haven't spent a
yeah.
birthday in Detroit since I turned 17 or 18. So I get it.
Yeah, but it was amazing. Spent time with the family, spent time, just rest and relaxation. So I'm pumped and ready for season 5 of
All
Women
right.
with Grit. Yeah. How are you? How's your family doing?
We're doing well. Everybody's doing what they're doing. The boys are all in football. So some weekends I'm doing youth football in Nashville, and others I'm in Connecticut or wherever the 19-year-old is playing. So we're kind of all over. And then we have a cheerleader. She cheers at the same park with the boys. So she's her and the 9-year-old they play and cheer at the same time, so that helps a little bit. But we're all over the place right now. School's in session, practice 3 days a week, plus all the other stuff. So we're we're in full force
Full
off
force mode.
off of summer break. Yes.
I know the feeling. I know the feeling. And to that tune, yes. So just so you all know, we're doing something very different. We mentioned this on our last show, but just to echo it, that we're doing things different as we move into season 5 with Women with Grit to accommodate for life, but to still be able to bring inspiring and amazing guests to you. So some sessions will be live, some sessions will be pre-recorded. The great thing, especially about those pre-recorded, is you guys get to know those guests even before you join, right? And so you'll start to see some of that, the communications, the reels, the pre-reads, some of the precedes as well. And that just allows us the fluidity to be able to accommodate with life, but know that we are still 100% committed. We're here. We're on every week, whether it is a live event or pre-recorded. So just to get that out there, handle those logistics.
That's right. And don't forget, you can go back into the catalog and check out all of our guests. Our first guest for season 5 was Dr. Stephanie Walker. And so if you missed that, go back
Phenomenal.
and check it out. It was a phenomenal interview and time. And just continue to go back. Of course, yes, we did one live, and then so we're doing it. Make sure any questions you have, though, feel free to shoot us a message, and we'll get those questions asked from whichever guest, past or present, that you have.
Exactly. And so if you're just tuning in, come on into the room with Women with Grit, where we interview amazing women around the world. Be sure to like us, follow us, and engage with us online. You can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/exceptional women with grit. You can also find us on YouTube at www.youtube.com/the @ and Women with Grit. We're so excited to have you on. And our website, I almost forgot the website, www.womenwithgrit.com. But in any of the forums that you choose to use, you can find us online. So how about we bring to the stage our amazing guest tonight?
Let's get going.
Awesome, awesome. Well, let me give you the quick rundown of our inspiring guest this evening, Miss Toni Kelly is the founder and CEO of Toni Kelly Counseling and Consulting. Miss Kelly graduated from Tennessee State University in 2009 with a Bachelor's of Science in Social Work, followed by her Master's of Science in social work in 2014 from Middle Tennessee State University. And since 2009, she has worked in various social work fields to include child welfare, long-term care insurance, behavioral health coordination at the managed care organization, inpatient psychiatric care, and outpatient mental health services. The exposure in different social services fields led Ms. Kelly to discover her passion for mental health and aging, and ultimately led to the opening of her practice, TKCC, in 2021. TKCC is an outpatient mental health clinic that caters to the emotional and behavioral health needs of women and or BIPOC adults. Outside of work, Ms. Kelly is a volunteer with NAMI, Davidson County, and other community organizations. And in her spare time, she enjoys spending time with her family, her husband, and her 2 children, watching crime scene investigation shows, as well as docuseries, and importantly, taking those power naps. We introduce to you all Miss Kelly. Hi, Miss Kelly. How are you?
Good. How are you all?
Great, thanks. Good to see you. Power naps, huh?
Yeah, love them. Absolutely love them.
Those are
Now, how
serious
long?
as an adult. Yes.
How long are your power naps on
I
average?
try to aim for 30 minutes.
Okay.
However, there are times where I wake up and mm, life has happened. So,
Uh-oh. It's gone a little bit longer than power, huh?
right, right, right.
That is so cool.
Awesome. Well, we love to kick this off with asking you to share more about yourself. So tell us your unique story of grit.
Ooh, that is a great question. Because I am definitely in a season of perseverance. But when I think about my life and the trajectory of my life, I think resilience is the only way that I can explain my journey and how I even got to this place. Life happens, you get exposed to different things, but I think all in all, resiliency and the ability to just bounce back has been my greatest skill set. And I think that now, when I reflect on my life, I think that every experience has strengthened that in some way. It hasn't always felt good, but it has definitely strengthened those 2 characteristics, which has led me to be able to navigate through the field of entrepreneurship right now. And so, uh, that is me, and that is where I am currently.
It's phenomenal. So the space of resilience, right? And perseverance being an important facet of where you are in life. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, you did.
And resilience is one of those things that you don't, I mean, like, you have to go through resilience in order to be resilient, if you will.
Hmm.
Can you give us an example? And now I know we're talking about the space of mental health, and it's so important, even in this place, to occupy that space of resiliency. Can you share with us what that looks like for you, or maybe some of the things that you're experiencing even now?
Yeah. So even, in my personal life, I'm in a spirit and a journey of really persevering. I always tell different people, I'm a social worker, I'm a psychotherapist, but at my core, I'm still a woman who struggles with anxiety. So when I am working with my clients and working with different people in different spaces, they may see success on the outside, but what they don't know is my journey on the inside, and what I'm having to do on a to day basis looks similar to what they're having to do, which is really take time to meditate, take time to exercise, take time to meet with my own therapist to talk through, negative thought patterns, to talk through, self limiting beliefs, all of those different things. And so I am standing alongside many of my clients because I am also doing the work on my own outside of working with them and doing the work that I do in the community.
Hey, question for you. We're gonna go real deep, just kind of off the
Okay.
front, off the rip. But I wonder, so October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, as well as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I think
Mm.
Domestic Violence Awareness Month is kind of shoved down or pushed back or covered over because of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I can't say, one is more important than the other. But as you're working with women, and this may or may not apply to your clients, but how do you, if you were to have somebody that was dealing with kind of going through cancer or breast cancer, and that created some depression or some mental health unstableness, how do you work with them? Same thing for domestic violence. And I think that they're probably two different kind of scenarios, but just want to bring that up and get your insight on that.
Yeah. So in working with it probably would be two different approaches because there are two different stressors. But at the end, if
Hmm.
I really think about how I approach therapy as a psychotherapist, I'm coming from a cognitive behavioral model where I am really focusing on how your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors all kind of clash together sometimes to really add to the depression that you may be feeling, the anxiety that you may be feeling, those type of things. So if working with someone with cancer really, that's a stressor. And I love educating people, any of my clients, on what is the brain doing when you are dealing with stress. What is the brain doing? How is the brain communicating with the nervous system? And how is that then impacting and leading to the negative thoughts, the inability to deal with stress, the physical symptoms that you are noticing? How do we kind of work around that? And how do we shape our thoughts so that your brain and your central nervous system and then ultimately your soul and body are all communicating in a healthier way, which leads to change. And then, with someone with domestic violence, again, if I'm coming from the viewpoint that I work from as a therapist, again, what are the identity issues that you are dealing with, as a domestic violence survivor? What are those negative thoughts or, negative feelings that you're having? Or what was the negative red well, what can I say? What was your abuser saying to you that you have now internalized, and kind of working around that? That is how I would approach, working with either of those clients and really dealing with, again, the stress, how the body, central nervous system, all of those things are really affecting you showing up as the best version of yourself.
Thank you for that. Now I have an unfair advantage, Lee, because this is actually our second recording of this segment. And Toni and I, we sat down before and had this amazing session. But as technology does, right? We're still working through some of those things. We had the need to
Yeah.
do this again, which is fun. One of the things that you said from that segment, you kind of gave us a window into Toni and a window into what life was like for you and the space that led you to becoming or having a focus specifically in the area of trauma. So we went really, really deep talking about trauma and really unpacking that for women in general. So can you give our listeners and our viewers a viewpoint into Toni and what led you into the space specifically as it relates to being a trauma therapist?
Yeah. So I've always said mental health has always been a part of my life. Like when I really think back on the different experiences that I've had, there has always either been someone or something that has connected me to mental health. And so as I was sharing with Charelle, growing up, my aunt is still living, but she has schizophrenia. And my father, who has a very close relationship with his sister, kind of normalized that experience. Like he didn't teach us to fear her. He would have her on the phone and have her on voicemail, and we would hear them kind of, going back and forth, or he would have her over our house, for family gatherings. And it was never, hey, you need to fear her, even though she may hear voices and all of these different things. Don't fear her, kind of lean into and get to know her. And so
Mhm.
that is what we did. And so even as a small child, I didn't quite understand her diagnosis, but I understood some of her struggles because my father did not shy away from it. And then
Mm-hmm.
growing up, my mom struggled with depression. So I saw that as a young child and her navigating through that experience. And then when I got to college and did my family tree, because we had to do it, part of social work is knowing where do you come from. And so I did my family tree and I had to go through and figure out who struggled with depression, who had cancer, all of these different things. And when I looked at my family tree, it was on both sides. Anxiety and depression was on both sides, and it showed up differently. On one side it showed up as aggression. On the other side, it showed up as, people who were very introverted and kind of kept to themselves and different things. But what it led me to understand is, wow, I have always been exposed to this, whether I knew it or not, and so what am I going to do with this now that I have gotten comfortable in this space and understanding um, kind of what mental illness can do to someone and how people can navigate that space. And so, once I decided to really go into the field of mental health, I one of the jobs that I truly enjoyed and was inpatient psych. And people look at me and ask me, like, how the heck did you enjoy working at an inpatient psych facility? Were you not scared? And I was like, no, there really was not a lot of fear going to work every day, because whether you believe it or not, it's a very controlled setting, you know? And so it's a very controlled setting, but I've always been exposed to mental health and schizophrenia and all of these things. So I was like, no, there's nothing to fear, and talking with someone with schizophrenia. If they're hearing the voices, I'm not going to argue with them. I'm going to lean into it and kind of, help calm whatever stress they're handling. And so I have inpatient psych was one of the greatest opportunities that I had. And it kind of also opened my mind to work from a more clinical standpoint and kind of understanding what is the brain doing, how can we help this client, and also from a biopsychosocial, what is their environment? Do they have access to medication? Do they have access to therapy? Do they have access to family and friends who can help in the when they are in distress? And so, so mental health, it has always been a part of my journey.
Got it.
Thank you.
There's so much more focus. Even my pastor Sunday, as part of his sermon, even went biblical and talked about mental health. What do you tell people, that are struggling but scared too? Because I think that's one of the big fears, definitely in the African American community, but even as a whole, people are, hesitant to get help or to even to kind of analyze their family tree to see, where some of the issues are. What do you tell people? What's kind of the first step for someone to kind of reconcile that they need additional conversation or help?
Yeah. Yeah. I was listening to the sermon from my pastor, Bishop Walker, this past Sunday, and he is doing a series actually on struggle.
Okay.
Yeah. So he said, this past Sunday, he was like, you can be a leader and still suffer from depression. You can be a leader and be depressed, and I think people have to understand that you can be who you are at your core and still have these internal struggles. You can have prayer, you can have a close relationship with God, but you may also need a therapist. You may also need medication to help stabilize your mood. And so it is having those honest conversations with yourself and removing the lens of shame, removing the lens of embarrassment, and allow yourself to lean into help, and to accept it as a part of your journey and what is necessary for you to show up as the best version of yourself. And so that message this, past Sunday was so powerful, because I hope what it did was allow people to say, I can, you know what, I can get some help. I can get some help. I am not crazy, because I think that at some point the Black community equated mental illness to crazy. And, and so if anybody said they were depressed or anything, folks just started to be like, oh, they crazy. Like, no, they're not crazy. None of us are truly crazy. Like, we just need additional help and support. And so I hope that people will lean into, no, you are not crazy. But yes, you may require additional support to show up as the best version of yourself.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that obviously we go to the same church. So I think one of the things that not just appreciate about him, but just overall having, more and more conversation and talking to more people, is that people in our communities are, because of sermons and because of kind of more information, we're understanding that it's really not so abnormal to need to talk to someone. It's almost like working out, making sure you go to the doctor, get your heart checked. It's, our mind is still, our brains are organs, and our minds are, need to be healthy also. And so it seems, I know, even talking to some younger folks, and like even athletes and people that, kind of to your point, that are successful, people are starting to realize that, it's not that I'm crazy. I'd be crazy not to get help because depression can lead to so many negative things, such as suicide and domestic violence, so many different things. So what's your hope? What more can be done? In addition to some of the things that are being done, what are some things from your perspective as a professional that could be done to really, liven up the story and make it more relevant to people, so that they understand, hey, this is just something that it's not so abnormal. It's normal, but it's something I need to address.
Yeah, I think, as more and more people start to talk about it, and more people with a platform, start to talk about it, it will also help, people kind of understand that we all have our struggles. I think that we also have to normalize the experience of mental health, in a sense, just like you recommend someone go and visit with their doctor on an annual basis to get their blood work done and their annual physical. We too have to normalize that needs to be the experience for the majority of us. Some of us need to check in on a yearly basis, and some of us need to check in on a weekly or monthly basis. But if we're thinking about approaching, life and wellness from a holistic approach, you have to take care of the brain. You have to release repressed feelings. And one of the ways to do that is with the help of a therapist. Someone that will help you be accountable. Someone who will look at you and speak to you and say, hey, something seems off. Let's dig deeper. And so really normalizing that, just like you go to the doctor to get your blood checked, you probably need to go see a therapist just to make sure, that you are working towards the goals that you have set for yourself, and that you are learning how to manage stress that may trigger any intense symptoms or emotions that you don't have the tools to deal with. And, working alongside a therapist and really normalizing that experience.
Awesome. So one of the things I would love to kind of circle back through, maybe, or expound on, is the concept of self-limiting beliefs. We all have them. We all have, like you said, the nature of being a professional, being on, but still having to work through, right? When you think about your journey and your experiences in life, have you found that there are or have been self-limiting beliefs that you had to overcome in order to continue on your journey?
Yes, that is a great question. And when we first talked, I believe that I had talked a little bit about this whole belief that I have to do it all. And if I want it done right, I need to do it myself, is a trauma response. That's what that is for me. It is a trauma response because of past traumatic life experiences. And because the ball was dropped in certain areas of my life, I felt like if I wanted to get it done, I had to do it on my own. So then what does that lead to? That leads to this path of perfectionism. That leads to this path of If I don't do it right the first time, then something is wrong with me, and so it's a lot of things I was internalizing in terms of there's something wrong with me, and why can't I be perfect, or why can't I do this? And so I have, been working to unravel that, because it doesn't work as a mother, it doesn't work as a wife, and it sure as heck is not working as an entrepreneur. Where I am having to navigate this space of managing a business. I know how to work through mental health. My background is clinical. I don't know how to manage a business, and so I'm having to lean into resources. I am having to fight against these negative beliefs. And I'm also having to understand and go back to really unraveling trauma and how it's still showing up, in my behavior, and how I can start freeing myself and letting go of that. And so, I hope that gives some insight to, what you were saying, Charelle, regarding that.
It
Yeah.
does.
I would add, one of the things, Tony, that you should think of. So I was a business major in college, and I've gotten a 1099 every year since I graduated college. So I've
Mm.
never really worked for anyone. But even having, and I tell people this, even having a business background, um, managing a business is different than just having
Mhm.
a business background. And even to your point of being able to give up control and empower other people to do things, you still have to do that. And that's
Yeah.
something that business people with business backgrounds, we have to, that's the funny part of it, is that even though we have this background, we still have to learn how to give up control and delegate
Mm.
people in place, because we can't do it all.
Yeah.
And if you try to do it all, then most of it's not going to get done. And
Mhm.
especially your core business won't get done. So you do
Right.
have to find professionals that can help you with your accounting, your marketing. And it's not that you can't do it or don't know how to do it, but you just can't do it all. And so I tell people that, because a lot of times they're like, well, my background, I can't do it. I'm like, well, even if you had the background, you wouldn't have time to do it if you're going to run a successful business. Um, but that leads me to the question, though, what led you to um, embarking on this entrepreneurial journey, and the what did you see in yourself that gave you confidence that you could be successful in this in a business setting of your own, owning your own company?
Yeah. So I did not initially say, hey, I want to have my own private practice. I think what COVID did in terms of personal and with my family situation was led me to value time more,
Mm-hmm.
and recognize how precious time is, and how by commuting to work, an hour and a half to get to Nashville, an hour and a half to get back home, and then dealing with, the stress of working, at a for-profit hospital at that time and all that was going on with COVID, I said, there has to be a better way where I
Mm-hmm.
can kind of manage this. And so, again, life was shaping me and being exposed. And a friend of mine said, hey, have you heard of Nashville Business Incubation Center? They're looking for people to be on their junior board. And what they do is they support small business owners. And I was like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'll join the junior board, and kind of learn about, nonprofit management and all of those things, not thinking, that I was going to be a business owner, because what I also like is a consistent check. So, and then, and entrepreneurship does not offer always a consistent check, So I was not even thinking about being an entrepreneur. But as I got in, I was like, you know what? This is something that probably could give me freedom in terms of time,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to show up for my husband and children, and have a more flexible schedule. So let me lean into and see what this would, be about. So I started to take the classes on my own and try to
Okay.
build a foundation in terms of a business plan and those type of things, you know? And so eventually I was like, okay, I think I have a strong foundation. Let me continue to figure out how this could work. And so, I eased my way into it. I didn't take a whole leap. I kind of eased my
Right.
way into it, where I was working, part-time at the hospital and then part-time seeing clients, kind of trying to build a nest egg there and trying to really understand, who I could do my billing for, who could build my insurance and all of those different things. And then I took the leap,
Okay.
into full-time entrepreneurship,
Hmm.
and went there. So I am not one of those people who was like, yeah, I knew I wanted to run a business. No, I knew I wanted to be more available to my family.
Right.
But I also knew I wanted more control and with my time. And I
Hmm.
wanted to be able to focus on my passion,
Right.
of mental health and those type of things. And that is where I am right now.
So
I
outside of
love that.
your
Thank you.
practice, what other things do you do to promote kind of mental health and um, around throughout the community?
Yeah. So I am a volunteer with NAMI Davidson, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the Davidson County chapter. And so through that, I lead support groups. And it's a mixed support group, people with living with mental illness and family members and caregivers who are supporting those with mental illness. And so I do those support groups with them. I also do other community events. Um, those are the different passions that I have there. And then I also try to my practice offers different groups, for people who have mental illness or not mental illness, but are struggling with some type of depression, anxiety, but need a community of people. And so I have an
Okay.
upcoming group in November for entrepreneurs who need help in terms of managing how do I deal with depression and anxiety, but also learning how to, still handle this business. And so that is
Mm.
what I will be offering in November. But any opportunity that I can, I'm speaking about mental illness. I am normalizing mental illness by talking about my own experience with anxiety and depression. And so that is what I try to do. I try to have those day-to-day conversations with people, but also
Mhm.
you will see me out in the community talking about and leading, groups and those different things around mental illness.
Okay. Wonderful.
Thank you. And that is powerful. Just the space of the business realm and the space of mental health. I'll touch on that when we come back. But believe it or not, we are more than halfway through our time. But before we actually take a break, I would like for you to put this in your box and kind of think through it. And we'll ask you this question when we come back up. But the question I want to pose for you, Toni, is let's talk about trauma. And let's talk about what is trauma. Put a definition behind trauma, and also how and what are ways that trauma can show up in the lives of others. Recognizing that, a lot of our guests are high performing women, things of that nature. Trauma might look different from one person to the next. But when we come back up, if you could delve into that space of what is trauma and how can it show up in our lives so that our guests can really be able to know how to set the course in motion for the next steps. All right, thank you, Toni. Hey, Lee, man, what I tell you, this is such a powerful topic and a powerful
It is.
conversation to have,
It is.
especially now as we're, getting close to the holidays. I hear that the holidays, a lot of people, unfortunately commit suicide and do different things. And we're getting towards the back half of the year. And I just think this is such a relevant conversation to have and really
Hmm.
delve into strategic ways that people can lean into mental health.
Right. Yeah. I fully agree. I think it's timely. It's not just timely. I think every day is timely. At as we look at society and we look at the deficit
Yeah.
uh, where we're working from. Um, just the fact that especially in African American communities we haven't really discussed it that much. So I do. It's definitely timely.
Exactly. And not only that, but for our youth as well, and just the rate of change for them and technology. I mean, information is at their fingertips, but even though you have access to information, doesn't mean that we have oftentimes the ability to comprehend and dissect it into experience. And sometimes, that can lead itself as well in ways that transform the way that they think. So I think
Hmm.
that it's a relevant conversation. And Toni is, spot on with it. I appreciate, her transparency and just the space of things that she's talked about, even now about normalizing the experience of mental health, seeking support sometimes even outside of your health. It's a conversation that we should have. So this is one of those things that I am just super duper excited about, and being able to really delve into even in more conversation about the need for it and what it looks like to gain access to mental health. So as you all are again coming in the room, you are tuned into Women with Grit with myself, Charelle Lands, and Lee Molette, as well as our guest tonight, who is Toni Kelly. And Toni Kelly, again, is doing some amazing things in the space of mental health. If you're just dialing into us, be sure to like, share, and follow us on any and all of our platforms. You can find us on YouTube at www.youtube.com. You can also find us on www.womenwithgrit.com, and you can especially find us on the space of being able to delve into facebook.com at www.facebook.com/women, exceptional women with grit. On any one of our forums, be sure to connect with us. If you know of a woman with grit that you would suggest being on our show, be sure to share this with them, as well as allow them to connect with us on any one of our feeds, our DM, and a member of our team will get back to you as well. So with that being said, I would love to bring Toni back up to the stage. Before we went off, I posed the question to her about what is trauma, really being able to define what trauma is, how does it show up in our lives, and ways that viewers like you can begin to take steps towards them as well. So Toni, over to you with that specific question.
Yes. So trauma, if we are thinking about trauma and defining it in in a simple way, even though trauma is not, simple, it is any distressing or disturbing event, or exposure to or witnessing, any type of distress or disturbing event that leads to psychological and or physical responses that show up. So this could look like avoidance, and again, let me go back and define, the disturbing and distressing things that can happen. We're really talking about some form of abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, psychological, those type of things. Witnessing someone being physically, sexually, mentally abused, or even, life circumstances such as a pandemic, or, a tornado or flood, those different things, those can all be distressing events. And what happens is, because of those distressing events, again, we're going back to how the brain and body is communicating. It's storing those images. It's storing, those sounds that you heard. It's storing that out of body experience that you may have had, and it's trying to protect you in some type of way, and or you are trying to make sense of it and deal with it in some type of way. And so that can show up in some people being easily startled. That can show up in some people avoiding certain situations, places, or people. That can lead to self-destructive behavior, such as drinking, or being hypersexual for some people. That leads to sleep disturbances, difficulty concentrating. It varies in terms of, the symptoms that can occur with trauma, but there are some, consistent symptoms that people with PTSD experience, and kind of that out of body experience that they may have in some cases, or that disconnect from their body that they may have. And so again, trauma is really your brain and body trying to make sense of, like, what do I do with all of this? And how do I handle that? And trauma doesn't have to be abuse, all of the time. Sometimes it can be being fired from a job and not being prepared. Some people can experience, PTSD symptoms from that. And so it's really about the person. It's really about their life experiences, and it's really about how their brain and body is communicating. And it shows up differently for people, but there are some consistent symptoms that can show up.
So you kind of mentioned you talked about some of the different things people can get involved in through trauma. How do they determine, say for instance, drugs or sex or what have you? How do they determine? How do you help them determine that it's not that you're having fun and it's recreational, you're just having a good time, but it's actually a problem? How's that
Mhm.
determination made? Because people
Yeah.
say,
That's
I
a good
just drink
question.
because I'm just having a good time.
Right, right. And people they'll try to make sense of it, like, oh no, I'm just having a good time. But again, if we're thinking about it from a mental health standpoint and from the diagnostic statistic manual that we all use as therapists, we're looking at time frames. How long have you been engaging in this behavior? What consequences have occurred as a result of this behavior? Are you able to stop this behavior? Those are the type of questions that we are asking because, the time frame in which you have been engaging in these behaviors is a clear sign of, okay, this isn't just fun. This is a pattern, that has resulted as a result of X, Y, and Z. Let's dive into this,
Mm.
and so it really is around time frame. When did the traumatic experience occur?
Mm.
And how long you have been engaging in this type of behavior, or how long you have been noticing these symptoms. Mhm.
I think that's an important one to talk about, which is the space of time frame, trauma. I want to lean into, going back to this is a show called Women with Grit, and a lot of women tend to lean into that path of perfectionism. You talked about that a little bit earlier on in this segment, and I wanted to make sure that we circle back on it. And interestingly enough, the guest last week, we had just a small bite about the space of perfectionism and overcoming it. So it is, definitely real, and definitely real for women as we continue to move throughout life. But can you talk about perfectionism, either whether you've seen it within yourself or you've seen it within some of your clients, and how can individuals move from that place of feeling like everything has to be perfect to a place of just making progress?
Let me
Yes.
tag one
So,
thing. Let me tag one thing onto that, and then they expect everyone else around them to have that same level of perfection. Their kids, their
mhm.
spouse, everybody around them, and so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. So in my practice, it caters to women and minorities. And so I'm
Mm.
working with a lot of women, and I'm working with a lot of Black women who are in very challenging spaces within their career. Um, and different things. And so they feel like sometimes if I show up as this, then I will not be accepted,
Mhm.
in this space, or I will be overlooked, or I think that a lot of Black and minority people have heard this: we got to work 10 times as hard. And so we're going in with this mindset of, I got to be on this committee, I got to do this, I got to work,
Mm.
overtime here, and so we're we're overwhelming ourselves, and we're overstimulating ourselves because we are looking for success, and so we come up with these self-defeating thoughts, self-defeating behaviors, and feeling like you have to control everything is a self-defeating thought, and it shows up as a self-defeating behavior. It's having an attitude, and feeling like everyone is against you when that
Mhm.
may not be the case. And then I think that those self-limiting beliefs also, if we're being fully honest, it interferes with us being transparent with ourselves and being truly authentic, and feeling like we have to put up a shield because we have to protect ourselves in some type of way. And so it does become very difficult, for the clients that I've worked with to understand that there's a different way. There's a space where you can be successful but also feel free in a sense. You don't have to be on all of these committees. You don't have to be on all of these boards. You don't have to do it all, and you can still have success. Let's redefine what success is. Let's reimagine what success could be like and feel like from a place of peace and freedom and wholeness. So it really is working with and challenging the mindset of why do you feel like you have to do it all? you know can you let go? And what does it feel like letting go? What is your body saying to you when you're letting go? What is the tension that you feel? Where is that tension in your body? And it's really diving into that space and working with the client to go down a path of letting go and feeling free, and feeling whole.
So talk about kind of a slight shift. Ask people, speaking of yourself from your own personal experience, and even looking at some of your clients, what's the upside to all of this? If I'm going through, working on myself and getting counseling, and I'm understanding this, what's the upside? Where's the win? Why do I even want to do this?
Yeah, no, and that's a good question because folks will come to therapy, and they'd be like, "I feel worse," and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, that's because we we pulling up some stuff. We're digging deep. So yes, you
Right.
are going to feel worse sometimes, but what are we going to do to help you get the confidence to say, I can manage the responses that my body and mind are having at this time?" And
Mhm.
so that, so if we're thinking about the benefits and if we're thinking about it from a holistic approach, because I love approaching mental health from that standpoint, taking care of your mental health decreases, you know, cardiovascular problems, it decreases digestive issues. There are some people who deal with depression and anxiety who are dealing with irritable bowel syndrome or constipation and those type of things. So dealing with your mental health can help with, your heart health. It helps with digestive issues, and so that's what it can do for you from a physical standpoint. From a social standpoint, it allows you to have more intimate relationships with other people. It
Mhm.
allows you to connect with other people. There's less isolation, because you feel like you can be in community with people. And then if we're thinking about it from a personal standpoint, it is the ability to set healthy boundaries, to put yourself first. It is the ability to say no. That is one of the benefits that come with therapy. It is the benefit of feeling like you can rest and take care of yourself and engage in self-care, you know and it's the ability to and the benefit of creating less tension within your household because you feel more free and
Mhm.
you have tools, that you can engage in to kind of help manage the stress that you're feeling or the anxiety that you're feeling. So it's a holistic approach. There are benefits when you take care of your mental health, which essentially is your brain. When you
Mhm.
take care of your brain and how your brain is communicating with your body, you're going to see benefits physically, mentally, spiritually, socially, in all areas.
That is fantastic. So, Toni, man, we are really winding down and wrapping up fast. But couple of things I want to ask you, which is one, what are a couple of nuggets that you would want to leave in the space of mental health and in the space of how our viewers can take their necessary next step, whatever that is?
Yes. I love telling people you can have prayer and God and a therapist. You can have all three. And you don't have to pick and choose. Sometimes you may not want to deal with prayer, but you may want to talk with the therapist. Sometimes, you and God are not connected, but again, you can talk to your therapist, but you can have all three. Also, you can have it all, but not at the same time. Take that pressure, release that. You can have it all and not but probably not at the same time. And in order to have it all, you may need to delegate, as Lee was saying, that business owners have to do. You have to learn how to delegate. So within your own personal life, you may have to learn to delegate and outsource and ask for help, and that is okay. And then thirdly, there is nothing wrong with living with and having a mental illness. And you hear that I said living with, because it is. You learn how to live. You learn how to engage with the world, you know in a space that prioritizes what you need in terms of mental health stability and how you can continue to have that on a consistent basis. And so those are the three nuggets that I would really want to offer to all of your viewers.
And so one of the questions we always like to ask is, what do you do for fun?
Mm.
We think Toni just having a good time, doing her thing. What is it that you're doing?
Oh, so I am at a Mexican restaurant with friends, having a margarita and laughing.
Okay.
That is what I love to do for fun. I'd like to go out with girlfriends. Homecoming is coming up, so TSU homecoming. So you will see me out enjoying myself. You will see me out enjoying myself. And then with my family, we love to just watch movies and sit back. We're so busy running the kids to different activities and those type of things. So really just spending time together, just watching movies and those different things.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Now, what type of things are your kids into?
Yeah, so my daughter does competitive cheer.
Oh, okay.
And so she's 11 years old. She does competitive cheer. And then my son, he will be 7 tomorrow. And he is kind of one of those kids that just liked to run. I don't know if you watched that Cat Williams special where he talked about the kids just running. Like my son wakes up and he just runs. He just likes to run. So we put him in any sport that allows him the freedom of running. And right now it's soccer.
Okay.
And so he is in soccer, and as soon as soccer's over, we're putting him in basketball because he needs that space and that freedom to just run.
Right. Understood.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Thank you.
On the notion of fun things, we're going to do a quick game of this or that. All right. And Lee, you can play too. So I'm just going to ask you, which one do you prefer? Okay. So cake or ice cream?
Cake.
What about for you, Lee?
Cake.
Cake. All right. Books or movies?
Movies.
Books.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Summer.
Dogs or cats?
Neither.
Neither.
Okay. Popcorn or chips?
Chips.
Chips.
Singing or what was that?
Chips for me too.
Chips. All right. Singing or dancing?
Dancing.
Yeah. Which, yeah, you all would prefer to see me dance than to hear me sing.
Right.
Vegetables or fruit?
Veggies for me.
I love veggies. Yeah.
And last one, night owl or early bird?
Night owl.
I would have to say neither. If I'm not in, like, I like to be asleep by 10. And if I'm not, I'm yawning my way through whatever it is. So.
Well, there it is. Oh my goodness. Well, Toni, tell our viewers how they can connect with you further and engage with you beyond the show.
Yes. So you can connect with me on Facebook at Toni Kelly Counseling and Consulting, Instagram, Toni Kelly Counseling. And you can visit my website at ToniKellyCounseling.com. I will be offering, that entrepreneurship group in November, but also have some space and opportunity to work with women and or minorities who are struggling with depression, anxiety, life transition, stress management, and even those, which is a specialty area for me, is working with women and minorities who are healing from a traumatic brain injury. And really helping them through the emotional aspect of that journey. And so that is how someone can connect with me and work with me.
Quick question before we wrap up. Is this something my health insurance will cover, or is this kind of out of pocket? Are there some financial barriers that you're finding with people when they're trying to connect?
Oh, thank you so much for asking that question. So yes, what you will find is that there are some barriers when it comes to mental health in terms of access. So if you do have if you do have health insurance, I always say start with your health insurance plan and see what therapists may be in network with your health insurance plan. If you are hired through a company, I always say start with your employee assistance program, because what that will do is that will allow a certain amount of sessions with you where you don't have to pay a copay. You're already paying the premium, so I'm not saying it's free, but what I'm saying is you won't have to pay the copay, and that gives you time to really see if you and the therapist connect, because it takes about 2 to 3 sessions to see if that therapist is a right fit for you. But what you will notice is not all therapists accept insurance. It's an additional hassle for, from an administrative standpoint, to deal with insurance companies. And so what you will find is there is a growing number of therapists who are self-pay only. And so what can happen is you can self-pay, but you can ask them for a receipt where you can then go to your insurance company and say, hey, will you reimburse a portion of this? And some insurance companies will reimburse a portion. If finances is difficult for you, I always tell people, do not shy away from interns. Do not shy away from working with an intern. If that intern or someone who is pre-licensed will be you will receive a reduced rate, but they're also being supervised by someone who is fully licensed. And so you're kind of getting to work with 2 therapists at once, because they have that direct supervision coming from them. And so it's a great opportunity for you to still get access to mental health, but at a reduced cost if you are uninsured. And so, just consider all those things. And so, yes, mental health benefits can be a benefit of your health plan, but there are other opportunities for you to still get quality mental health services if you don't have insurance.
Okay.
Now, on that note, Toni, which is, is there a benefit to doing self-pay versus during insurance, just for the viewers who might be kind of, I want to do it through my insurance, do I want to just go ahead and walk the line of self-pay? Is there a specific benefit that you can kind of speak to quickly?
Yes. So in not using your insurance, there is more autonomy and freedom to choose. Insurance has certain criteria in terms of the number of sessions that you can have. And then insurance is also coming from a disease model, meaning there has to be some diagnosis attached to your situation in order for the insurance to approve of it. And so by not using insurance, we don't always have to identify or label your experience. Using insurance, we have to label it. And then also not using insurance, you can determine if you want to see that therapist weekly, bi-weekly, or, hey, do I need to see them? I'm dealing with a lot of stress. I may need to see them twice, or can I have an extended session? And so there's freedom in not having to label in terms of a diagnosis, and there's freedom to choose in terms of the interventions that you and your therapist will do. You don't have to go strictly by the insurance and the insurance limitations.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Well, this has been such a dynamic time. Thank you so much, Toni. We are just so excited that you availed us your time, right? To be able to share these nuggets on a very important topic with our viewers and our guests. So we thank you so much for gracing the stage of Women with Grit.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. We definitely enjoyed it. I think it's something our listeners will really learn from, enjoy, but really grow from. And it's definitely one of those segments that needs to be shared over and over and over again.
That's right.
It's kind of timeless, because this is a topic that we're so far behind on. It's virtually impossible to catch up, but we need to take strides in trying to catch up. So
most definitely. You're welcome.
That's right. Thank you. I'm going to do a quick recap and then we will be out of here. So, man, what an amazing time we had just connecting with Toni Kelly, right? Of Toni Kelly Counseling and Consulting Services. I want to give you guys just a couple of quick nuggets that we captured. But again, be sure to share this, like it, and follow it, as well as share it with someone who might need this information. She talked about when you're dealing with stress, it is important to understand what is your brain doing. How are you thinking about it? How are you processing that stress? And being able to understand, as well as be able to identify issues that you are dealing with. So make sure that you check in with yourself to know what those stressors are. Be also able to look down your family tree and understand if a particular issue is recurring, right? And understand how those things may have affected you or how they have showed up in your life. But also recognize that mental health or dealing with an individual who might have mental health should not be something that's taboo or something that you're afraid of. And the example that she gave was of her uncle and kind of growing up and how her family gave her a safe space to work through that with her family member. You can be who you are at the core and still have struggles. Dealing with mental health doesn't mean that you can't walk through life and actually work on those things. And it doesn't mean that you have to be it all, have it all at the same time. No, you can exist and still have struggles to work through. Have honest conversations with yourself without shame or embarrassment to normalize the experience of mental health, and recognizing that just as you get checkups at the doctor, just as you go about making sure that you are well, that this is a part of mental health, is a part of your wellness, and normalizing the experience of mental health is also important. Recognize that you can relinquish the need to do it all, right? You can delegate, you can gain help, you can in fact have it all, but maybe not at the same time. Those are some of the things that Toni mentioned, which is sometimes you might have to delegate, sometimes you might have to ask for help, sometimes you might have to pivot, but you don't have to do it all in order to have it all. Seek support outside of yourself and recognize that it's okay, and it is definitely okay for you to ease into a space before you decide to take the leap, right? She talked about her journey to entrepreneurship, and it wasn't something that she just jumped into immediately, but she eased into it, gave herself space, continued to check in, and then decided to make the leap. Recognize that trauma sometimes shows up in the form of abuse, but also in traumatic experiences, and you don't have to have something that's catastrophic to be considered a traumatic experience. But recognizing the need to check in and understand, okay, well, how am I feeling? What is that stressor? What is that tingle, or what is that edge that I'm feeling? And really tap into it in such a way that you can recognize what your brain is doing in that moment. Ask yourself, how long have you been engaged in a particular behavior or even a pattern that has not been to your advantage, that has maybe derailed you or caused you some kind of strife, as an understanding of that, but also to seek the necessary support in helping you lean into that even more. Recognize that there is a space to be both successful and free, and give yourself permission to do so. She also said that taking care of your mental health improves your physical health, your social well-being. It allows you to connect with others. It allows you to really set healthy boundaries that will allow you to move more freely in life. Rest and engage in self-care, and recognize that it is okay to do that. It is okay not to sit on everyone's board or everyone's committee, but knowing where to establish those healthy boundaries along the way. She said that you can have prayer, you can have God, and you can also have a therapist. Like, you can have all three, and it is okay to do so. You can have it all and recognize sometimes it's just not at the same time. There is nothing wrong with living with and having mental illness as well. Also, I want to leave you guys with a couple of questions that Toni left for us. She said, when was the last time that you let go? The question is, can you let go? Like, really sit and think. When was the last time that you relinquished control in such a way that you allowed yourself to be free? When was the last time that you had an honest conversation where you checked in with yourself? I challenge you to take 10 minutes to do that. Check in with yourself and really assess, when was the last time that you let go? Man, this has been a really impactful and phenomenal time here on Women with Grit today with Toni Kelly. And we simply thank you so much for taking an opportunity out of your busy schedule to connect with us. Remember, you can like us and follow us, as well as share online. If you know someone who is dealing with mental health, be sure to share Toni Kelly's information so that they can get the appropriate help that they need, as well as for yourself, and recognize that there is nothing wrong with it at all within the process. So we thank you so much for your time, and we thank you so much for gracing the stage of Women with Grit. And until next time, we will see you in a week's time with another amazing woman. Take care.
See y'all later. Thanks for joining. Make sure you share and tell your friends about this episode. It was phenomenal.
Yes. Bye.